Sell it. The doctor didn't even look at him when he said it. Sell whatever you have. But understand this. Even that might not be enough. The room went quiet. Machines kept beeping. Soft, cold, indifferent. Daniel stood there, staring at his daughter, 8 years old, too small for all the tubes wrapped around her body. Her name was Lily, and 3 hours earlier, she had stopped breathing. No warning, no time, just a sudden collapse in the middle of the kitchen floor. Now she lay in the ICU, her chest rising only because a machine forced it to. Daniel swallowed. "How much?" he asked. The doctor hesitated, then said a number that didn't sound real. Not for someone like Daniel. Not for a man who had spent his entire life fixing other people's houses, but never owned one himself. That night, he didn't go home. He didn't sleep. He made calls, sold his tools, sold his truck, even signed papers to give up the small piece of land his father left him. Everything. Because when you're about to lose your child, money stops being money. It becomes time. And time was the one thing Lily didn't have. But what no one knew was that something had already begun. Something quiet, something unseen, something that didn't come from medicine or money. Before we continue, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from and what time it is there right now. Because what happened next has been told in whispers, by nurses, by a woman who was never on the hospital staff list, and by a father who, to this day, still doesn't understand how everything changed in a single moment when he had already lost everything. Daniel hadn't always lived like a man counting every dollar. There was a time when his hands built things that lasted. Kitchen cabinets, front porches, entire rooms that families would fill with laughter he would never hear again. But over the years, the jobs got smaller. Repairs instead of builds, quick fixes instead of foundations. And somewhere along the way, life narrowed down to just 2 things, work and Lily. She was 8, too curious for her own good, always asking questions he didn't have answers to. Why do people get sick? Why do some houses feel happy and others don't? Daniel would usually just smile and say, "Because life's complicated, kiddo." But Lily didn't like complicated answers. She liked drawing instead. Every evening, after dinner, she would sit on the living room floor with her colored pencils spread out like a ritual. And almost every time, she drew the same thing. A woman, standing tall, wrapped in a soft blue color that she never quite got right. Sometimes lighter, sometimes deeper, but always blue. At first, Daniel thought it was just imagination. Kids drew all kinds of things. But then he noticed something strange. The details never changed. The way the woman's head tilted slightly forward. The way her hands seemed open. Not reaching, not holding, just present. And the expression, calm, not smiling, but somehow comforting. "Who is that?" Daniel asked one night, leaning against the doorway watching her sketch. Lily didn't look up. "She comes when it's quiet," she said simply. Daniel frowned, half amused. "In your dreams?" Lily shook her head. "No." A pause. "Just when it's quiet." He let out a soft breath, brushing it off. Kids said things like that all the time, didn't they? Still, that night, as he turned off the lights and walked past the hallway, he found himself glancing back toward the living room. The drawings were still there, spread across the floor. All of them, the same woman, the same blue, the same stillness. And for the first time, Daniel didn't feel amused. He felt something else, something he couldn't explain. Quiet thought that maybe, before everything fell apart, something had already been trying to reach them. The morning it happened felt like every other morning. Too normal, too quiet. Daniel was in the kitchen, standing over a pan that had already started to burn at the edges. He had been up since before sunrise, finishing a small repair job invoice, trying to make numbers stretch where they no longer could. Behind him, Lily sat at the table, swinging her legs, humming softly to herself. There was a piece of paper in front of her. Another drawing. Blue again. "Eat first," Daniel said, not turning around. I will, she replied. But she didn't. He heard the chair scrape lightly. Then silence. Not the comfortable kind. Not the kind you forget about. The silence felt wrong. Too sudden. Too complete. Lily? He called. No answer. He turned. And everything broke in a single second. The paper had fallen to the floor. Her chair was pushed back. And Lily was on the ground, not moving, her eyes half open, but not seeing anything. Lily! The pan hit the floor with a loud crash, oil splattering across the tiles, but Daniel didn't feel it. He dropped to his knees, grabbing her shoulders, shaking. Too hard, too fast. Hey, come on, baby, look at me. Nothing. No response. Nobody's. For a split second, his mind refused to understand what his eyes were seeing. Then it hit. Hard. He pressed his ear against her chest. Nothing. Too quiet. Nu. His hands trembled as he fumbled for his phone, nearly dropping it twice before dialing. 911. What's your emergency? My daughter. She's not breathing. She just fell. Please send someone. His voice broke. Words tangled. Time collapsed. Stay on the line, sir. I need you to listen carefully. Is she conscious? No, she's not. She's not. Start chest compressions. Now. Daniel placed his hands over her small chest. Too small. Too fragile. Push hard and fast. Count with me. 1, 2, 3. His arms shook. 4, 5. Come on, Lily. Please. 6, 7. Tears blurred everything. 8, 9. He couldn't feel anything. 10. Not a heartbeat. Not a breath. Only the sound of his own voice. Breaking. In the distance. Sirens. Faint at first. Then louder. Closer. But not fast enough. Nothing felt fast enough. Because on that kitchen floor, with each second stretching into something unbearable, Daniel felt something slipping away. Something he couldn't hold, no matter how hard he tried. And just before the paramedics burst through the door, Lily's fingers moved. Just slightly. Barely noticeable. But real. And for one impossible moment, Daniel froze. Because he thought he heard her whisper something. So soft, it almost didn't exist. Don't be scared. By the time they reached the hospital, Daniel's hands were still shaking. Even after they pulled him away. Even after the doors slammed shut between him and the only thing that mattered. He stood in the hallway. Empty. Bright. Too clean. Like nothing bad was ever supposed to happen there. But it had. It already had. A nurse tried to guide him into a chair. He didn't remember sitting. Didn't remember how long he waited. Time didn't move the same way anymore. It stretched. Twisted. Broke into pieces. Voices passed by him. Footsteps. Carts rolling. Distant alarms. But everything felt far away. Muted. Like he was underwater. Until, Mr. Carter? He looked up. A doctor stood in front of him. Older. Calm. The kind of calm that didn't mean good news. Daniel stood too quickly. How is she? A pause. Too long. She's alive, the doctor said. And for a split second, Daniel breathed again. But it didn't last. She experienced sudden respiratory failure. We're still trying to understand why. Her body isn't responding the way it should. Daniel stared at him, not fully understanding. What does that mean? It means, the doctor hesitated, choosing his words carefully. We're supporting her breathing right now. Without the ventilator, she wouldn't be able to breathe on her own. The words landed heavy, cold, like something final. But she's strong, right? Daniel said quickly. She's always been strong. She just needs time. The doctor didn't interrupt, but his silence did. There's a treatment, he finally said. Experimental. High risk. And very expensive. Daniel's chest tightened. How expensive? Another pause. Then the number. It didn't sound real. It didn't belong in his world. Daniel let out a quiet laugh. Not because it was funny, because it didn't make sense. I can figure something out, he said. I'll borrow, I'll sell, The doctor nodded slowly. I need you to understand something, he added gently. Even with the treatment, there are no guarantees. Daniel's eyes drifted past him, through the glass, into the ICU room, and there she was, Lily, so still, so small, machines breathing for her, lines running into her arms, monitors blinking in quiet rhythm, as if they were the only things keeping time now. Daniel stepped closer to the glass, placed his hand against it. I'm here, he whispered. His voice barely made a sound. I'm not going anywhere. Behind him, the doctor walked away. Another case, another hallway, another family about to break. But Daniel didn't move, because in that moment, nothing else existed. Just a father, a child, and a reality he couldn't fix, no matter how hard he worked, no matter how much he gave. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the fear, beneath the desperation, a quiet question began to form. If this wasn't something he could solve, then what was? And who was already watching? That night, Daniel didn't go home. He didn't sleep. He didn't even sit down, because sitting meant stopping, and stopping meant thinking, and thinking would break him. So he moved, from one call to the next, from one number to another, anyone he had ever worked for, anyone who might still remember his name. Hey, it's Daniel. I need to sell some tools. Cheap. Everything. Most of them hesitated. Some didn't answer at all. A few said they'd call back. They didn't. By morning, he had sold half of what he owned. His toolbox, the one his father gave him when he was 16, gone. His ladder, his power saw, the old truck that barely started in winter. Someone offered less than it was worth. He took it anyway, because value didn't matter anymore. Only time. Everything was being traded for time. But time was slipping faster than he could catch it. By the second day, there was almost nothing left. Except one thing. The land. A small, uneven piece of ground just outside the city. Not worth much to anyone else. But to Daniel, it was everything. It was where his father used to sit in the evenings. Where he once said, even if you lose everything, you'll still have a place to stand. Daniel hadn't been back there in years. But now, he stood at the edge of it. Wind moving through dry grass. Silent. Still. Like it had been waiting. The realtor talked beside him. Numbers. Contracts. Signatures. Daniel didn't hear most of it. His eyes stayed fixed on the ground. Memories pressing in from every direction. You sure about this? The man asked. Daniel didn't answer right away. His hand tightened around the pen. For a moment, just a moment, he hesitated. Because this wasn't just land. This was the last thing that said he still belonged somewhere. The last thing his father left behind. The last piece of a life that hadn't fallen apart yet. Then, he thought of Lily. Her hand in his. Her voice. Her drawings. And the way she said, she comes when it's quiet. Daniel closed his eyes. Signed. Just like that. It was gone. Everything. Every tool. Every dollar. Every memory tied to something he once called his own. Gone. He walked away without looking back. Because if he did, he might not be able to keep going. And he couldn't afford to stop. Not now. Not when everything he had left was lying in a hospital bed, fighting for a breath. The first time it happened, no one was paying attention. It was just another late shift. Another quiet hour in the ICU where nothing changed. Until everything did. Nurse Elena had been working for almost 12 hours straight. Her eyes burned. Her steps slower than usual. She moved from one patient to another, checking vitals, adjusting lines, doing everything by routine, by memory. Until she stepped into Lily's room. And stopped. Not because of the machines. Not because of the monitors. Because of something else. She frowned slightly and took a slow breath in. Then another. Do you smell that? She asked, turning toward the doorway. No one answered. The hallway behind her was empty. Elena stepped further inside. The scent grew stronger. Soft, sweet, familiar, like roses, fresh roses. But there were no flowers in the ICU. No visitors had come in hours. No one was allowed to bring anything like that inside. She checked the corners of the room, the counter, the trash bin. Nothing. Still, the scent lingered, not overpowering, just present, strangely calm. Elena shook her head lightly, almost smiling at herself. Long shift, she whispered. Then she turned back to Lily. Still, silent, machines doing all the work. Elena reached down to adjust the four-line and froze. Lily's finger moved, just slightly, a small twitch, barely enough to notice. But Elena had seen enough patience to know that wasn't random. Her eyes sharpened. Hey! She leaned closer, voice soft, careful. Lily? Nothing. The monitors stayed steady. No alarms. No sudden changes. But Elena didn't move, because something felt different. The air, the silence. Even the rhythm of the machines felt softer somehow. Then, just for a second, Lily's finger moved again. Elena stepped back quickly, heart beating faster now. She glanced toward the door. Still empty. No one had come in. No one had touched anything. And yet, something had changed. She looked back at the child. Then slowly, very slowly, took another breath. The scent was still there. Faint now, but undeniable. Roses. Elena didn't write it in the chart. Didn't call it in. Didn't say a word. Because there are things you don't report. Things that don't belong to medicine. Things that don't fit inside numbers or screens or explanations. But as she stood there, watching a child who should not be moving at all, Elena felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Not fear. Not confusion. Something quieter. Something deeper. Hope. And somewhere beyond the walls of that room, unseen, unrecorded, something had already begun to move. The second time it happened, Elena wasn't alone. It was just past midnight. The kind of hour when the hospital felt suspended between two worlds. Not fully awake, but never truly asleep. Two nurses stood at the station, reviewing charts. A monitor beeped softly in the distance. Footsteps echoed down the hallway, slow, measured, not rushed, not urgent, just present. Elena looked up first and saw her, a nurse, walking calmly toward Lily's room. Light blue scrubs, hair pulled back neatly. Nothing unusual, except Elena didn't recognize her, which was strange, because in a place like this you learned faces quickly, especially on night shifts. New? The other nurse whispered. Elena didn't answer. Her eyes followed the woman as she passed by. There was something about the way she moved. Too quiet, too steady, like she wasn't reacting to anything around her, just moving with purpose. The woman reached Lily's door, paused, then stepped inside. Elena felt it immediately, that same shift in the air, subtle, but unmistakable. Without thinking, she stood. "I'll check," she said. The other nurse shrugged, going back to her screen. Elena walked down the hallway, each step slower than the last. Not out of fear, but something else. A kind of hesitation she couldn't explain. She reached the door, pushed it open slightly, and stopped. The woman stood beside Lily's bed, one hand resting gently near the child's arm. Not touching, just there, close, protective. The machines were steady, calm. No alarms. No urgency. Just a quiet stillness that didn't belong to a critical care room. Elena cleared her throat softly. "Excuse me." The woman turned, and for a moment, everything else disappeared. Her face, soft, peaceful, not smiling, but filled with something Elena couldn't name. Her eyes held a kind of calm that didn't ask for permission, didn't explain itself, just was. "Are you assigned to this room?" Elena asked. Her voice sounded smaller than she expected. The woman didn't answer right away. She simply looked at Lily, then back at Elena, and spoke. "Don't be afraid." The same words. Elena felt her breath catch. Before she could respond, A monitor beeped softly behind her. Just for a second. She turned instinctively, glanced at the screen. Everything normal. When she looked back, the woman was gone. No footsteps. No door. No sound. Just gone. Elena stepped fully into the room now, her heart racing. She looked around. Corners. Curtain. Bathroom. Empty. Completely empty. And yet, the air still held that faint trace. Roses. She walked slowly to the bedside, looked at Lily, and for the first time since the girl had arrived, Elena felt something she couldn't explain. Not just hope. Certainty. Like something had entered that room, and nothing would be the same again. But when she checked the staff board later, scanning every name, every shift assignment, there was no record, no new nurse, no transfer, no one in blue, just blank spaces where answers should have been. By the third night, the hospital stopped feeling routine. Even the machines sounded different, sharper, more urgent, as if something beneath the surface was beginning to break. Lily's condition had changed. Not better, worse. Her oxygen levels dipped without warning, then stabilized, then dropped again. Each time just long enough to trigger concern, not long enough to explain. Doctors adjusted settings, changed medications, ran tests that came back inconclusive. Nothing clear, nothing solid, just a slow drift in the wrong direction. Daniel hadn't left the hospital in over 2 days. He sat beside her now, closer than before, as if distance itself had become dangerous. His eyes were red, voice gone quiet. He spoke less, watched more. Every movement of the monitor, every shift in her breathing, every sound that didn't belong. Mr. Carter, a doctor said gently, stepping into the room. Daniel didn't turn. We're seeing instability, the doctor continued. We're doing everything we can, but you need to be prepared. Prepared. The word landed heavier than anything else. Daniel finally looked up. For what? A pause. Too long. The doctor held his gaze. For any outcome. Silence filled the room. Thick. Unavoidable. Daniel nodded slowly. Not because he accepted it. Because he didn't know what else to do. After the doctor left, the room felt smaller. The walls closer. The air harder to breathe. Daniel leaned forward. Rested his forehead against Lily's hand. Cold. Too cold. I'm still here, he whispered. His voice barely made it past his lips. I'm not going anywhere. The monitor beeped. Steady. Then, a sudden drop. A sharp sound cut through the room. Daniel's head snapped up. Numbers falling. Too fast. Too sudden. Hey, hey! He stood, panic rising instantly. Nurse! Footsteps rushed in. Voices overlapped. Hands moved quickly. Adjustments. Commands. Urgency flooding the space. Stay with us, Lily. Pressures dropping. Increase oxygen. Daniel stepped back. Helpless. Useless. Watching everything unfold in front of him, and unable to change a single thing. Then, just as quickly as it dropped, the monitor steadied. The alarms slowed. The room exhaled. One by one, the voices quieted. The tension loosened, but something had shifted. Something deeper than numbers. The doctor glanced at the screen, then at Daniel, and this time, there was no attempt to soften it. We're running out of time. The words stayed in the air long after he left. Daniel stood there, alone again, but not the same, because now, for the first time, he felt it clearly. That edge, that invisible line, the one between holding on and losing everything. And somewhere just beyond that line, something was waiting, not rushing, not forcing, just waiting. For the moment, when there was nothing left, the moment came when Daniel had nothing left to give. No money, no strength, no words, just a chair beside a hospital bed, and a silence that felt heavier than anything he had ever carried. It was just past 3 a.m., the kind of hour where even the lights seemed dimmer, where time slowed and everything felt suspended between ending and something else. Daniel hadn't moved in hours. His hand rested over Lily's, his head lowered. Not asleep, just empty. The machines kept their rhythm, steady, predictable, until they didn't. A sharp tone broke the silence. Daniel's eyes snapped open, numbers dropping. Fast. Too fast. No, no. He stood abruptly, knocking the chair back. Help! Somebody! Footsteps echoed in the hallway, but inside the room, everything felt distant, like sound couldn't reach him in time. The monitor screamed, flat, a single line, endless. No! Daniel grabbed her hand, cold, still. Lily, stay with me, please. His voice cracked, broke completely. Don't go, don't. And then, something changed. Not in the machines, not in the room, in the air. A warmth, subtle, but real, like standing near sunlight, without knowing where it came from. Daniel froze, because he felt it, on his hands, on his skin, a gentle warmth spreading outward. Impossible. And then, the scent, soft, familiar. Roses, stronger than before, filling the room, not overwhelming, just present. He lifted his head slowly, and saw it, at the edge of the room, not fully visible, not something you could point to and explain, but enough, a shape, presence, wrapped in that same soft blue Lily had drawn. Again and again, Daniel couldn't move, couldn't speak, could only watch, as something beyond understanding stood there, quiet, still, not rushing, not forcing, just being there. And in that silence, he heard it, not with his ears, but somewhere deeper. Don't be afraid. The same words, again. And then, the monitor, a sudden sound, sharp, alive, a pulse, one beat, then another. The line broke, numbers rising, slow, then faster, then steady. Voices burst into the room. Doctors, nurses, shock replacing exhaustion. What just happened? She's back. Heart rate stabilizing. Hands moved quickly again. But this time, not to save, to follow, to catch up to something that had already begun. Daniel didn't step back, didn't move, his eyes still fixed on the corner of the room. But it was empty now. No blue, no figure, no explanation. Only the fading trace of something that had been there, just long enough. And as the machines settled into a new rhythm, stronger, steadier, Daniel felt something break inside him. Not fear, not despair, something else, something deeper, relief, overwhelming, uncontainable. He dropped to his knees beside the bed, tears falling freely now, not holding back, not trying to understand, because for the first time since it all began, he knew whatever had just happened didn't come from anything he had sold, anything he had done, or anything he could ever control. Came from somewhere else, somewhere quiet, somewhere unseen, somewhere that had been there long before this night began. Morning came, but the questions didn't. They multiplied, quietly, relentlessly, the kind that didn't belong in a hospital chart, didn't fit into reports, didn't follow protocol. Daniel hadn't slept, not even for a second. He stayed exactly where he was, beside Lily's bed, watching the steady rise and fall of her chest. On her own now, no machine forcing it. Just breath, real, alive. Every few minutes someone came in. Doctors, nurses, specialists, each one studying the monitors like they might reveal something new, something logical, something explainable. She stabilized on her own? That doesn't make sense. We need to rerun everything. Voices filled the room, but none of them had answers. Daniel didn't listen. He couldn't, because his mind was somewhere else. Back in that moment, that warmth, that presence, that voice, and the figure, the one he couldn't fully see, but knew had been there. By midday, he couldn't hold it in anymore. There was someone in here, he said suddenly. The room went quiet. A doctor looked up. Someone, a nurse. Daniel continued. Wearing blue. She was right there. He pointed toward the corner. I saw her. A pause. Then, no one entered the room during that time, the doctor replied carefully. That's not possible, Daniel said, shaking his head. She was here. Elena stood near the doorway, silent, watching, because she had seen something too. Not the same way, but enough. Check the cameras, Daniel insisted. They did. Minutes later, a technician pulled up the footage. Everyone gathered, eyes fixed on the screen. The room, the bed, Daniel, the machines, everything exactly as it had been. Except, there was no one else. No figure.
No nurse.
No movement in the corner. Just empty space. Daniel stared, confused, frustrated. No! She was right there. He stepped closer to the screen, as if looking harder would make it appear. But it didn't. Only one strange detail remained. At the exact moment the monitor flatlined, the image flickered, just for a second. A soft distortion, like light passing through something unseen. Then gone. The footage returned to normal.
No explanation.
No record.
No proof.
By evening, the hospital moved on. Charts updated. Rounds continued. Another day, another case. But not for Daniel. Because as he sat there, watching his daughter breathe, he knew something had entered that room and left nothing behind. Except one thing. A certainty. That what saved Lily was never meant to be seen. Lily woke up just before sunset. Not suddenly. Not dramatically. Just a small movement. A shift in her fingers. Then a breath, deeper than before. Daniel noticed it instantly. He leaned forward, eyes locked on her face. Lily? Her eyelids fluttered. Slow. Heavy. Like someone returning from a place too far away to explain. Hey, I'm here, Daniel whispered, his voice breaking again, but softer this time. No panique. Just hope. Careful. Fragile. Her eyes opened. Not fully at first. Just enough to find light. Then, they found him. And for a moment, everything else disappeared.
No machines.
No hospital. No fear. Just a father and his daughter looking at each other again. Dad? She breathed. The word barely audible. But it was enough. Daniel let out a sound that wasn't quite a laugh, and wasn't quite a sob. Something in between. Something real. I'm here, he said quickly. I'm right here. Lily blinked slowly, her gaze drifting slightly past him, toward the corner of the room. The same corner. Daniel followed her eyes. Empty. Still. Nothing there. But Lily smiled. Faint. Peaceful. Like she was seeing something he couldn't. She said you'd be here, Lily whispered. Daniel froze. His hand tightened gently around hers. Who? He asked, his voice almost afraid of the answer. Lily didn't hesitate. The lady. A pause. In blue. The room felt smaller. Quieter. Every sound outside faded. What did she say? Daniel asked softly. Lily's eyes remained on that empty space. She said I didn't have to be scared anymore. A breath. Slow. Steady. She held my hand. Even when I couldn't feel anything. Daniel's chest tightened. Not from fear. From something deeper. Something he couldn't explain. Did she tell you her name? He asked. Lily shook her head slightly.
No.
Then, after a small pause, she didn't need to. Daniel looked again toward the corner. Still nothing. But it didn't feel empty anymore. Not the way it had before. Because now, there was a presence left behind. Not seen. Not proven. But felt. And as Lily's breathing settled into a calm, steady rhythm, as the monitors confirmed what no one could explain, Daniel understood something he hadn't before. The miracle wasn't just that she survived. It was that she hadn't been alone. Not even for a second. Even when no one else could reach her. Even when everything else failed. Someone had stayed. In the weeks that followed, life didn't go back to what it was. Couldn't. Some things, once broken open, never closed the same way again. Lily recovered slowly. step by step, breath by breath. The doctors called it remarkable. Some said unusual. A few just stopped trying to explain it at all. But Daniel didn't use any of those words. He didn't try to name it, didn't try to understand it, because he knew whatever had happened in that room didn't belong to explanations. It belonged to something else, something quieter, something deeper. When Lily was finally discharged, they didn't go back to their old routine. There wasn't one anymore. The house felt different, smaller somehow, like it no longer held the same weight. The drawings were still there, carefully stacked now, every page the same woman, the same blue, the same calm presence that had once felt like a child's imagination. But now, Daniel couldn't look at them the same way, because now, he had seen it too. A few days later, without saying much, Daniel got into his car, or what used to be his car, borrowed now, temporary, like everything else. He drove out of the city, past roads he hadn't taken in years, until he reached it, the land, or what used to be his. The grass still moved the same way. The wind still carried that quiet stillness his father once loved. Nothing had changed, and yet, everything had. Daniel stood there for a long time, not speaking, not thinking, just standing. Then slowly, he walked to the center of the field. Kneeling down, he pressed his hand into the ground, closed his eyes, and for the first time, he didn't ask for anything. No more bargains, no more deals, no more trying to trade something for something else. Just silence, just presence, just gratitude. Later that week, he came back, not alone. Lily walked beside him, still weak, but smiling. In her hands, a small object, simple, unfinished, a statue, roughly shaped, not perfect, but unmistakable. A woman, wrapped in blue. Daniel didn't say anything. He didn't need to, because something had already changed inside him. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady, like something that would last. And this time, he wasn't building for others. He was building something that couldn't be sold. There are stories people can explain. And then, there are stories like this. No report will ever fully capture what happened in that room. No chart will show the moment everything changed. No camera will prove what Daniel felt, or what Lily saw, because some things are never meant to be measured, only remembered, only carried. Daniel lost everything, every tool, every dollar, every piece of a life he once thought defined him. And still, none of it was what saved his daughter. It didn't come from what he sold, or what he sacrificed, or what he tried to control. Came when there was nothing left, when the noise was gone, when the fight was over, when all that remained was a father sitting beside his child, with nothing but love, and a quiet hope he couldn't even explain. And maybe that's where the miracle was waiting all along. Not in what he could give, but in what he was finally forced to let go of. So if you've ever been in a moment like that, where everything feels out of your hands, where nothing makes sense anymore, where you've done everything you can, and it's still not enough, remember this. Sometimes, what changes everything doesn't come from you, comes to you, quietly, gently, at the exact moment you think it's too late. If this story touched you, comment Blue Mantle below. And if you've ever felt something you couldn't explain, presence, a moment, the sign, share it, because you're not the only one, and you were never alone.